He's a champion of live action, Chris, and he actually works for E Plus. So he's one of the partners, and he just, he's I think he's um, you know, trying to learn a little bit more about the live wire. So
Yeah.
we can just have this
Yeah.
session to kind of walk him through some of the cool stuff. And I've just forwarded the invite because you're the master of live wire, Chris. So just want to have you on. So thanks for joining.
Sure. Yeah, I do know a few things. I came in and just heard the into that conversation where you're installing Livewire Virtual onto Nooks.
Yeah, right now. So I've been working with live wires very sparsely over the last year when I first got introduced to the live action suite of products. And I've mostly had it running on a laptop in VirtualBox. And it crashes pretty often every few days. And I don't really know why, but at least I think I've got it isolated down pretty fundamentally, pretty simple. And so I just told my manager, I'm like, hey, do we have any hardware that I could borrow and get a live wire in my lab running? And he's like, hey, price something out for me. So that's why I asked Jalul to get me, and he super very conveniently had it basically a hardware template. So I priced that out and got it to our guys. And so yeah, hopefully I'll get a Nook uh within the next month or so.
Oh, okay. And Jalul, is that the same in a Nook that you guys use
Yeah.
on your team?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's the same one.
additionally too, um, I just wanted to say if we start to deploy these out in customer environments, then that's probably a template that we'll use. I don't know if Nooks have like 10G interfaces available, etc. I'll be probably looking into that. But getting like our own hardware to put Livewire images on is probably something that we want to look into.
Okay.
And you guys, just so you're aware, we do sell our own kind of Nookish device called the Livewire Edge. You guys are
That's
familiar
right.
with that?
Do those have 10G interfaces on them?
They don't have Kinji, but what they have are multiple ports, right? So you've got a bridge port, you've got 3 span ports. So they're more like a network device, a native network
Yeah.
device
I,
than a Nook, which is really a little PC.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
on your Nook, you're only going to have, like a management port. But Jalul, do your Nooks have an extra port that you can use for a span port?
No, just a single one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So see, that's kind of a problem where you're capturing on the same port that your management port
Yeah.
is. So it's
What I would
great for
do
demos. Yeah.
is basically use like a USB-C to Ethernet connector. Uh which, and I know that's not 10G either, but what I'll probably maybe build out if we're going to deploy it uh is build something with a 10G interface and then use a USB-C to gig Ethernet for actual management, etc. But yeah, I'm
Okay.
definitely on that. And yeah, I'm familiar with the
With
Livewire
the Edge.
suite. Yeah, I looked at those, and that's why I didn't really think about them because in the back of my mind I was like, I was pretty sure they were just 1G, so I didn't consider them for data center deployments, etc.
Okay. Well, another thing to keep in mind is, it's more not just the port, but the processing capabilities of the Nook, of the SSD. We have the fastest SSD in our Livewire Edge we could find, and that's important because even if you can capture at a certain rate, you got to make sure that your SSD is fast enough that it can capture that to disk, and that you have enough cores in there to what we do with the live flow is we take the packets, we load balance them by flow over the cores, and our Livewire Edge has eight cores, so pretty powerful. And I don't know if you were to price out the cost of a Livewire Virtual with the Nook. The Nook probably doesn't cost you much, but the Livewire Virtual, that's our intellectual property. If you compare that to an Edge, I wonder which would be the better deal. I kind of suspect the the edge would be, just because Livewire virtual. But I don't know, Jalul, what is the the pricing on the virtual that they would use on their Nook?
The large one, I think I don't have any visibility into pricing, but I think the large virtual will definitely be more expensive than the Edge.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
edge includes a license of OmniPeak for Windows, which is like, 5K right there. And then it
Unless
also includes a device license for Live NX. So you're getting that part as well because, usually what customers are going to do is take their live wire and put it on the network and then feed the flow from the live wire into Live NX, and that requires a Live NX license. So the edge includes that. So it's everything you need. If you go with the Nook, you're piecemealing it. So just keep that in mind. I love the ingenuity, but I wonder if it's worth the effort
Yeah. The
versus just
the big
selling
thing,
the edge.
the big reason that and especially yeah, the edges like generally I'm not considering edges because when we're putting live wires out there, they're going to go in the data center. They're going to be capturing 10 plus gigabits per second. And so the only question is whether we get one of your big live wires or if we build our own big live wire. And
I see.
as
Well,
far as I know, your supply chain on your big live wires is backed up and kind of sparse. So that's
oh,
why
we don't have
I'm
we don't have any power cores. Jalil.
that's what I've heard, and that was as of
Okay.
maybe a few months ago. And that's
Hmm.
okay. I mean, I understand, and etc. It's totally fine. I'm comfortable with putting images onto rack servers,
Yeah.
etc. So
Well,
it's just that's the only question. That's all.
yeah, I don't think we're having a supply chain issue with our power cores anymore. I think we're past that if we ever had that. But I'm glad you mentioned the 10 gig because it doesn't matter what interface you put on your Nook, whether it was 10 gig or 80 gig or 100 gig.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean you're going to be able to capture
yeah,
at that rate.
yeah, definitely.
So please don't think that just because you find a Nook with a 10 gig interface you're going to be able to capture at 10 gigs because you're not. You're going
Yeah,
to get maybe, similar to the Edge, 1 gig, but probably not even do as well as the Edge. So, you put a 10 gig interface on your Nook, you're still going to capture at a gig.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
You're going to drop everything else
Yep.
because of what's inside. Those are little machines. So a gig is a sustained gig is pretty good. But if you're going to do this, be very aware of the SSD you're putting in there because what'll happen is you'll start capturing at whatever it is, and you're not going to get much more in a gig. So let's say you're pumping a gig through there, everything's looking good, and then depending on the SSD, it'll just fall off a cliff because
Yeah,
those SSDs they'll buffer it for a while. They'll start writing to disk, and then if they don't have the right onboard RAM to do the appropriate buffering and
yeah,
the firmware to do it, we ran into this. We had to go through a couple of SSDs till we finally found one that got us to a sustained write to disk full 1 gig on a single SSD. So, that's another area where, we've invested a lot of, time and, money and effort into testing the edge so we can stand behind all the specs that
yeah,
we have up there. Uh, but yeah, just be aware of all of those things. You're going to be going into new territory where we won't be able to say, yeah, we've tested what you're trying to do on this Nook, and
yeah.
so you're
Definitely, I wouldn't deploy probably Nooks out in customer environments. I may have said that I would earlier in this call when I wasn't really thinking, but definitely for the customers that we don't really have anybody that has anything less than a gig, and so we assume that we're going to get 10 gig or more, and assume that a rack server size device is what we need to
Oh
plant in their
wow.
environment.
Yeah. Then you have to have a power core for
Exactly,
that. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, whether
Okay.
we get it from you or build it. And so yeah, it just one of these Nooks is what I'd get just for my home lab.
Oh yeah,
So
that's great. Well, that's
yep,
what we all do too.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, in that case, yeah, have fun because and that'll be great. The Nooks are cheap, and for your own environment, that's what all the SEs are armed with Nooks, where they actually have livewire and LiveNX. So it's great for demos.
Yeah.
Uh, where you can have the full solution on a single machine.
Super much. Exactly. And that is really great. I'm That's actually super cool to think about. I have in my own lab, I have a LiveNX and a LiveWire. I finally got an annual license for the LiveWire, so I don't need to go out and get trial licenses every 5 days.
Right.
Um,
Cool.
I but yeah, and that's what I have here is my
Excellent.
live wire, and then behind it I opened up the Java client. I was showing Jalul how I know that where'd it go?
Yeah, so
There
I
it
can
is.
see you've got both
I got
LiveWire and LiveNX. So
yeah,
you've already got your
yeah.
LiveWire pump and flow into LiveNX.
Yeah, it's super plug and play. Every time my LiveWire crashes, I just make a new one and feed it into my LiveNX. I've been working very intensely with LiveNX for a year. I have very confident with it, and so that's super fun. And what this purpose of this call really is just so we're starting to price out, build, and sort of propose things to customers. And I want to be similar in my comfortability with Livewire as I am with LiveNX. Because like with LiveNX, when I started out with LiveNX, what they did was they said, "Hey, we have this giant client. You're in charge of their LiveNX," and I knew nothing about it. So it's been a lot of on-the-job learning and stuff. And what I want to do is, instead of discovering cool things about Livewire as I go, I want to be armed with lots of cool things about Livewire on the front end. So when I finally get to planting a Livewire in someone's environment, that I can effectively give them some killer intel and all the awesome stuff, instead of finding it out slowly along the way, and then 6 months down the line, sure, I'm a super expert on it, and there's all this stuff that I could have been really leveraging along in those first 6 months.
Totally. Got it. Well, and what you want to be able to do, of course, is go into a customer environment. Maybe you're doing a POC. You hook it up. They start capturing some traffic, and you want to be when you come over and start talking about the benefits. The quicker you can get to that wow moment, the better, right?
Exactly. That's
So
super true.
yeah, you don't want
Yeah.
to, have to give them an hour-long demo of a bunch of features. You want to be able to show them, you know, here are things about your network which you probably didn't even know about, and we're highlighting them here and telling you actually what those problems are. And you
Yeah.
can do that very quickly with Livewire because of all the analysis that we do.
Yeah.
So when you're integrating LiveNX with Livewire, and you're doing that, and you probably heard of the cross launch where you go from a flow to
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
so
killer.
so
That really is
it
killer.
it absolutely is. Those alerts are coming from the packets. So, the positioning there is, yeah, because some people are like, well, how often are we using the live wire? Because we only go to the live wire every once in a while.
That's right.
Well, that's not the way to think about it. The live
Yeah,
wire is there
exactly.
working for you 24/7, not only capturing those packets to disk, but also doing that analysis, generating the flow, sending it up to LiveNX, and generating those alerts. So
Yeah.
without you doing anything, it is monitoring your network. And if there is, an issue of latency, application or network latency or jitter, you're going to be alerted on that. So it was the one doing the work for you all the time, and then only bothering you if there's a problem on your network. So that's easy to pitch.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's the live wire, using the live wire more proactively to understand more the globally, holistically what's going on in your network. And you do that by going directly to live wire. And you would, if you have a live flow capture, then you would just go to the forensics tab where we're going to show you the traffic over time. And I see you've got that right there,
Yeah.
that in the orange, that forensics tab. And that's going to show you the traffic you've been capturing. And what you want to do there is just
I
take
can
like a little,
select it. Yeah. I've done
just
I've
take a
done this
little
exercise a few times, and it is really it's super cool. Yeah, click forensic search, and
quick
then I
search.
pick what I want to do with it, and then the more fields I choose, the longer it takes to process, and then yeah,
But you definitely want them all on though, because it's the,
exactly. And what's
you
really
know,
cool is for a long time, I didn't really like the OmniPeak client because I didn't understand that it was a true client. I thought it was just basically a Wireshark analog that was just called OmniPeak. And then I saw the similarity in the interfaces, which clued me in. I'm like, wow, this is like a web interface to that OmniPeak client. I was like, wow. And then I realized I could plug it in, etc. And yeah, you get all this super cool info.
and
And
then you realize it's not like Wireshark at all.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
It turns it upside down. In Wireshark, you look at packets first, and really only packets and decodes, and there's a little bit of analysis. Our focus is on the analysis.
Exactly.
This is what you're going to be looking at, all these dashboards which have put the packets together in different ways. And then, only if you ever need to look at the packets will you go there. And while we're doing this analysis, we can go ahead and click on just flows, for example, under expert.
Yeah.
See
I
in
think
the left nav
it's still
bar.
analyzing.
That's okay.
Okay, super cool. I
Yeah.
usually I never go in while it's
Uh,
analyzing.
Go ahead and click on it.
it
Now,
didn't look like it had any packets in it, Chris. It was just still saying 0.
oh,
Um
wait a second. Okay, well, let's go back to that forensic
the
searches
home
then. Click
right
on
here.
forensic searches.
Oh yeah, there are
Uh,
packets. There are packets,
no,
definitely.
yeah,
Okay.
there are
Yeah.
packets. Now, Charles, I will mention that the number of packets you did choose,
Oh geez,
3.75
I didn't even realize it. Yeah, let me stop that. I
million
didn't
packets is a lot. So I think, yeah, stopping is good. Let's just go with this. We don't have, oh, wait, did you delete it?
I did not delete it.
Good. Okay. So go back to it.
Do you want me to
So,
record this for you, Charles, if you come back to it later?
Actually, I
there we
didn't
go.
tell you, but I'm recording this. So
Oh, okay, cool.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry. I just because when Chris got on, we were already talking very quickly. I have my OBS that I recorded to MKV. I can share it with you too afterwards. I was just like, wow, we've got a full party here, and I didn't want to miss any of it.
I'm glad you are. I think we've had some good
Yeah,
conversations so
and
far.
I'll show this to my
So,
manager too, just so he gets some understanding as far as all the super fun stuff.
here we've built the packets into flows, because really individual packets don't tell you much. So we build the flows, but unlike in Live and X, where all you have are is the flow data, which is just really a few fields. Here, this is flow data based on the actual packets. And if you go up and you go to go to your column headers and sort on average application latency, it's over to the right,
Yeah.
and sort there, because utilization, number of packets, none of that really matters as much as is there latency, and is it the network or the application. So go ahead
Yeah.
and let's see. Yeah, you got it. So look, we can see just very easily we've got certain flows that have outrageous application latency. I'm looking at your network latency. The good news is I'm not seeing anything
Yeah.
out of the ordinary. Network latency looks pretty good. It's all under a second.
Yeah.
There's one that's 1 second, but for the most part, we're talking a couple hundred milliseconds, which
Exactly.
still is kind of high for network latency. So, we really want to see network latency around, 40 milliseconds or so.
Yeah.
But
But this is
then
home internet connection plus you got the entire internet to think about. So, and it's DNS. So
There you
yeah,
go. So then you start looking at a couple things. One is, so go back to that sort on average application latency again, the other way. So, and
yeah.
once you've done that, let's go ahead and click on the first, that first one. That's a crazy one. HTTPS. So we've got a, play.google API, whatever, and our average application latency is, what was that like?
Yeah, that
Uh,
was what was
that was
it?
high. There it is down to
Oh
on
yeah,
three
it's like
minutes. 3 minutes for a single request to get a
yeah.
response,
And then we're
right?
gonna
Now
pivot
that,
out here probably, right?
now the network latency, we got our ACK back instantly, right?
Yeah.
So, within 18, best was 18 milliseconds. So the worst was 24 milliseconds. So that's not a problem at all. The network running great, but like, why the heck did that happen? So maybe this flow doesn't matter, but just as an example, we go up then and we click the flow visualizer,
Oh.
the top here of this
This
dialog.
I think this is
Yeah.
yeah.
And then what we're going to do is now show you this flow as a ladder diagram.
Yeah.
And you can now very visually see every request, every response. You can see the ACKs come back. So in that case where we had the problem, you see the request go out on packet number 16,
Hmm.
and then you see the ACK come back. You can see the flags there, it's the A. So, I can just tell by the size of the little bar that that's an ACK. And then you see that, quite a bit later, the actual data comes back. Can you go to the column header and go to the far right to the dot, 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 and let's bring up delta time?
Yeah.
I like delta time because then I can see exactly how long from the previous packet this packet took to get back to us. And you can
Yeah.
see it took 3 minutes and 59 seconds to get that. Like, that's just crazy.
Well,
So,
what's interesting is that, well, in here it looks like Livewire didn't or something like that because it says packet we jumped 75,700 packets from there.
yeah, because this is the whole network. Remember, we're capturing everything. So yeah, there was a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of other
Got
flows.
it. So this
Right.
is this
So
isn't packets for this particular flow. This is absolute packet number. Got it.
exactly.
Okay.
So that's a great point though. So what we could do is, if you click on that
The
packet, or
dots.
go to the far
Or
right and do the dot 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 again for
this guy.
that packet
For
75,
this, yeah, this
what's
guy.
that either packet 19 or packet 75,000, doesn't matter. So go to packet. And now that we're at that packet, but of course, there's a lot of packets in between.
Yeah.
So let's go to the dot 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 for this one. Yep.
Over
Where'd it
here.
go? Okay, right there. Go to the dot dot dot, the ellipsis, and now say select
Selected.
related packets by source and
Yeah,
destination.
that should work out. At least something like that.
See, so now see the workflow that we've got going on here. We
Yeah.
started with flows, we saw latency, we clicked on a flow, we go to flow visualizer, we go from flow visualizer to the packets. Now what we want to do is say open selected packets up at the top right. So now what we're doing is doing a forensic search on a forensic search. Okay, so hit start. And so now basically we're going to isolate these packets so that, those packet numbers are just, and there's 17 of them. Now you go to flows, or even let's just go straight to packets.
Yeah.
You go straight to
This was.
packets, and which is underneath capture. So now if you look at those packet numbers, they're right. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see, yeah, that it's just in isolation.
Yeah. And it
So
didn't
now,
get the one that was 75,000 packets beyond, but I'm sure there's a way to get those
no,
correlated.
but
So
it did, right? But it's now packet 8 instead of packet 75,000. You see what I'm saying? We have now,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
That was the whole point of this
Indeed,
exercise.
indeed. I just thought it didn't end up getting that, but it did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
four
yeah. It
minutes.
got it. If we do the
4 minutes down
flow
there.
visualizer from here, it would be it would look the same. So what we've done is
Got it. Okay.
we looked at the network proactively rather than, and you should do that every once in a while on your network, and you can do that with a customer and show them, wow, you've got some serious latency on this network that you didn't even know about. Give them
Yeah.
the good news that your network's fine, or maybe their network sucks, and you're like, oh, we need to take a look at that. But in this case, it was application latency, and then we were able to isolate it because this is what we're going to want to, download so we.
Uh-oh. Jewel,
Oh,
are you still there?
yeah,
Yeah, I think
I'm good.
yeah, Chris, we just stopped being able to hear you. And your thing just stopped lighting up. So WebEx
Yeah,
isn't getting your audio.
probably just get a Wi-Fi blip or something.
Super cool.
Yeah, he's in San Diego, so people don't work much there. They have a special.
Yeah, that's for
Cool.
sure.
Yeah, I think what Chris was mentioning, Charles, is the ability to download the packets. So yeah, here you can see now we're looking
Yeah,
at that.
exactly. Yeah, I traced back to see what it looks like, and then yeah, this totally would make sense to somebody. They'd be able to see that. Yeah, it's interesting. This happened overnight sometime, or maybe it just happened recently. But yeah, nobody
Wow. Can
cares
you hear
about
me
Google
now?
Play. Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Well, yeah, I had a little blip there. I don't know what's going on. Um, so the point I've been trying to make is that what we're doing is we're achieving that, all important goal of mean time to innocence, right? You
Yeah,
showed that, because
exactly.
you're the IT guy, you want your network to be working fine. You proved it is, and now you get to be the hero and help the application team to solve their problems. You can get to mean time to resolution. So now we
Yes.
have isolated this actual application traffic. You see there, in packets there was a button to
Yeah.
download
Yeah.
the packets. You download to a PCAP,
Yeah, this
and then
guy.
there's all kinds of analysis visualizations you can provide. You can show them right here, HTTP flow response time,
Super.
and provide information to them to help solve the problem. And then
Yeah.
and you're done,
Yeah.
and so because it wasn't your problem to begin with, but everybody was blaming you.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
that's for a lot of our customers, that's kind of the wow moment,
Yeah.
the money shot. There's another way to look at it pretty visually as well. If you go to Compass, sometimes where we
Compass.
start is Compass, it's right above packets. And
I may need to unfilter so we get, but maybe we'll get something actionable off of this. I get something.
yeah, so there's the traffic, and you see there's a pretty big gap in between. Um, so this is just for this particular flow,
Yeah.
which we, remember we did a separate forensic search on. If we go
Exactly.
back to the
Exactly.
previous forensic search,
Yeah, we'll
the,
see a lot
yeah,
better compass.
yeah. So we go to Compass, and what we're going to do is we're going to change the megabits per second up there. Average, what it says average bytes. Let's change that to two-way latency.
Once it gets down there. Or maybe I need to click it. Nope, it's just lagging a little bit. There we go.
Okay, so let's give that time. And once it finishes processing all this, which could take a bit because there's a lot of packets.
Yeah, so this is like a dashboard then, kind of, because I
It
see these are
absolutely.
widgets, and I imagine there are other widgets that are available to be added too, right?
There are. That's up in the go ahead and keep waiting. In the
Yeah.
select data source.
Super, super.
Yeah. And certainly when you're demoing, you'll want to, we had selected a pretty wide range of time. I would
Yeah.
keep the packets to under 1 million.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, scroll back up all the way to the top.
It's coming.
Okay, almost ready. Okay, so now we're looking at latency visually for everything, and you can very easily see that we have some latency, some application latency. Now, if you see in the bottom in the legend there where it says average app and average net, let's turn off the app for a sec. So just click on that entry for app, and it will turn off. And what will happen is the network latency, we can't even see the network latency because it's so low. But so that'll scale up and we get a better idea, hey, there's our network latency.
Yeah.
And the highest we see is like, 180 milliseconds. So
Yeah.
happy with that. Now we go and turn back on the average app. And now what we do is we look below and we go ahead and let's click on that top flow
Yeah.
where we've got 34 milliseconds of average app of app latency. So if we
Do I
when
need
we
to
start
click the
clicking on
checkbox?
entries in
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the widgets, they actually graph up at the top, right? So
Got
now you
it.
can start seeing what you've selected. Let's see, it's probably taking a while. And there it is. So there's the latency for that flow, and you'll notice that the latency for this particular flow is higher than the average latency for all of the flows because, of course, that's what averages do, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
no, yeah. So when we select a flow here, we say, "Oh, wow, that's higher than what I was seeing in the, in the all graph."
Yeah.
So this, is very visual, very interactive, over time, and there's certainly nothing like that in Wireshark
Oh
or
yeah.
in really any other protocol analyzer that I'm aware of.
Well, there are
So
some cool things you can do with Wireshark. I don't want to sell that short. But
there's
yeah, this
certainly.
is definitely super cool, and it's really nice to have this in a web browser. It's so nice.
Yeah, well, that's a game changer because that makes it so that anybody could use it. Maybe not my
Exactly.
grandma, but everybody knows how to use applications in a web browser. They're mostly
Yeah.
the same, and so anybody can click through these analysis and get it.
And then
Where
you
with
can easily
obviously for
automate
Windows,
it.
yeah, well, yeah, of course everything has REST APIs too.
Yeah.
So those are the two biggest ones. If we want to get really crazy, we can go down to the visuals and click on the peer map.
Yeah.
Just to yeah. Now this once again, a lot of packets. So I don't know how long this is going to take because um, it's got to crunch on a lot of data in order to produce this peer map. But let's give it the time. There we go. So,
Nice.
yet another way of, looking at the data. What we're trying to do is give our users, mental maps of what their traffic looks like, which you can't do when you're looking at a packet list,
Yeah.
right? If you've got, 10 million packets and you can only see, 30 of them on the screen at a time, how do you come up with a mental map in your head like this?
Yeah.
It's tough.
Exactly.
So here, we're showing you the different segments, who's talking to who, what the protocols are, the utilization across them. This is a very powerful view. It has different layouts. You can even view it by, let's see, we can view it by country. If you go to the box on the bottom, over to the left, and you can then select by country. You can do pretty much everything from here. You can filter. Yeah, you can move things around. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is
Where's
one of
the
those.
where's the country thing? Oh, it's
Yeah,
here. There we
yeah,
go.
there you go. Right there. Go do that. Click on that, and then, oh, no, sorry, it's the one. It's the one above it. I
Super
think
cool.
it's that grouping. Go
Grouping.
grouping. Yeah, you had it right
Yeah.
there by country. Let's see who's.
Awesome.
Let's see if North Korea's in there.
Yeah, no, that is killer, straight up.
Yeah. So see from the packets, even from the peer map, it wasn't obvious.
Yeah.
Where all this traffic is coming from. It looks like Ukraine's getting in there.
And then can we
Let's
drill
see.
down? Let's say I'm curious about
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Double click.
I can see, okay. And
There it
then
is,
I
and
can
and then you could filter on that.
exactly. And is
And
will it take this and filter it on this guy?
so click on that IP in the box right
Oh,
there.
okay.
Double. Yeah, there
Got it.
you go. Now say select related packets. Boom.
By destination, sure.
Source and destination, whatever. So that's the thing about
Whoops.
OmniPeak is, again, it gets back to this workflow, being able to move through the views as you start
Right
asking
there.
questions or want to see things in a different way.
Yeah, super much. And all of a sudden the question's answered. It's time for some reason. I need to get my time uh from Ukraine.
Yeah, that
And
is
that's actually LiveNX that's doing that. That's my LiveNX server.
your live in X server. Oh, let's see. Your live is
Reaching out to some NTP server in Ukraine.
Yep, not
yeah.
even
Be
kidding.
interesting.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, which leads to further investigation, possibly with other tools. Now you might want to get out your reverse DNS or your trace route or something like that to better understand what's going on. Because of course
Yeah,
we're only seeing the packets and doing all of our analysis based on packets, but from that information, you head down other paths, which is kind of the whole point.
yeah, exactly. Super.
So,
That's great.
yeah. One last thing I'll mention. We could go on for days, but I'm just trying to give you the highlights. If you go to the event log,
Yeah.
no, let's go to event summary. So, of course, we have an expert system built in, and we have over 200 different expert system diagnoses. And on the traffic that we're looking at now, this is another like go-to view to just understand what kind of issues you have on your network. We've got a lot of HTTP slow response times. We've got a lot of TCP retransmissions. There's a number of things. There's the DNS slow response times that are worth looking into. I mean,
Hmm.
one-way traffic, why would you have that? Uh, so, yeah,
Yeah.
this is a great place to go to start to understand what kind of problems you have on your network. And
Yeah,
then, of
straight
course,
up.
from here, you can do the old select related and get
Yep.
to the packets that are having these issues.
Yeah.
So this is breaking the events into their own list, but you've noticed from the packet list and the flow visualizer, we integrate the events into just about every other view so you can make these correlations between packets and flows and events. That's the other thing that we're doing, is not just doing all this different analysis, but putting it together to give you the whole
Hmm.
picture.
Yeah.
And
And just from here, like, yeah, it's pretty intuitive uh to drill down on those things.
right, because it's a web browser. Everybody knows how to use a web browser. There's only, so when we designed or we started developing, the OmniPeak for the web, it's like, well, there's only so many ways to do it. It's a web browser environment, and the kind of the UI style is similar to any other application you would use. So
Hmm.
people just more easily get it than they would uh, a custom app like OmniPeak for Windows, which is
Yeah.
pretty intuitive
It
as
is.
well,
Yeah, it's
but
pretty,
it's just
and that's
different.
what's, like I mentioned, it's so similar to this that yeah, it makes it easy because and I know it might be unrelated, but I started out using the OmniPeak client, and then I started using the OmniPeak web browser, and then I pivoted back to using OmniPeak client, and I was like, wow, this looks really similar. And then that's when I first figured out I didn't get any documentation. I figured out, I'm like, oh, I can probably plug the capture engine into this OmniPeak client because there's this button here that looks like it, and boom, all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I can do the exact same things in the client as I can with the web browser, and it made it really nice.
For sure. Yeah. And we did initially design the web UI, based on OmniPeak for Windows, but the web UI has started to deviate as we better understand how to make it better specifically for the web and how people want
Yeah,
to use it on the web.
exactly.
So it's evolving and it will
Yeah,
continue to do that.
yeah,
But yeah, if you already knew OmniPeak for Windows and then you come into the web, it's like cheating. It's like, well, you already know how to use it.
yeah.
So so that's great for our OmniPeak for Windows users. They're very comfortable coming over here. But for new users, the web UI is great because it's a web UI, and
Hmm.
that like, oh, I know that there's usually a nav bar on the left, and how to click on things, and you know kind of move around in a web UI. So it
Yeah,
works for both.
yeah, definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
So of course, we're also very strong in voice over IP. I don't know. Let's click on calls and see if there are any calls in this. That's under voice and video.
Yeah, this is
With all
only
the
200
traffic,
packets,
they're
but let me.
probably.
There won't be any calls. This is in the middle of the night, so I won't
Oh,
have anything
wait.
like that.
Which
Yeah,
forensic search are we in? Uh,
I'll get back to
oh,
the
go back to the main one.
yeah. Let me do media. There should be some streams in here. Oh, well, let's see if there's any calls. I figured it would take a long time, but yeah, there isn't anything too
Yeah, there we
interesting
go.
there.
So yeah,
Over
we're getting,
timeouts.
and you're right. We have some media, but it looks like we don't have
Two
the SIP.
packets.
We don't have the
Yeah.
SIP for that media, which is why the name is unknown.
Unknown. Yeah. And here,
But
yeah,
even
there's
with just the media, we can tell you, what the codec is.
yeah.
Well, if it's one we recognize, and we do recognize all of the most common, codecs.
Yeah.
But certainly there's some out there that we're not familiar with, so we recognize them as RTP, of course. So what you can do on any one of these is then click on one, and we can show you the jitter of that call over time.
Yeah. I'm just gonna
Like,
go and do the same thing for right now, and then we'll get some actionable data out of that. And hopefully,
yeah,
let's see
more like
how many
during the day.
packets exactly. Geez, that's still 500,000. Is that
That's
500,000?
fine.
Let's get it tiny. That's not terrible. Um, there we
Uh,
go.
Easy.
Yeah, I like to have control over those kinds of things. And
It's also always a good idea to rename your forensic searches, because after a while you're going to have a pile of them and they're all going to be called live
yeah,
flow capture.
you're absolutely right. And I have that same um, philosophy around like Live and X reports. So yeah, it's
Exactly.
interesting how forensic search is sort of an analog of Live and X reports.
It is. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we're doing a report here based on the
Yeah,
packets versus based on the flow.
yeah. All right, and we go to calls.
See if we got any calls now.
Should have this WebEx call,
Yeah,
right, Charles?
that's probably what this is.
Yeah.
Right. And there we go. So it recognizes the H264.
Yeah, and I
And
skipped
so,
past that because there wasn't too much, but I figured this is where we were going. So
yep.
it's got. There's probably a lot of that's signaling, so there may not be any signaling, but the
Oh, yeah, there's no signaling.
protocol.
Right, right. Let's just look at the RTP.
It
So,
may take it a second to populate, or it may give nothing.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe let's go back to media
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and
probably what it is. It's like, oh, it's not a call, so I don't care about you. And then yeah, let's look at this. This has the most.
yep, voice and video flow visualizer.
Let's start with signaling.
Yep,
Yeah.
and then go to RTP since we
Could
don't
just
have
be
this.
too small of a
It seemed like
window.
we. No, maybe it's just a matter of time. Maybe we just need to wait.
Yeah.
'Cause
That's
I
another thing.
can't.
It could be a UI thing. That I noticed a lot of these things, and I always put in like feature requests and stuff like that. But especially like when we're doing like the loading screen for even starting from the forensic search or even from captures where it says no data, if that were to persist there for more than a few seconds, then that could be really worrisome. Somebody could say, oh, it's not loading, and then exit out. Whereas it would be nice if there were sort of an animation similar to when LiveNX is generating reports. It has that gray screen that kind of refreshes itself. It kind of flows left to right. If there was something like that to show perceived activity, that way someone would know that, hey, some processing is going on, as opposed to there may be processing when it's showing this, but we just don't know it.
Yeah, and I think I agree. And there's areas we can make improvements there. We do have spinners, and I think if it
Yeah.
was processing, there would be a spinner. So for reasons I don't even know because I'm not a voice over IP expert. There's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
no RTP
Super cool.
data for that.
Super cool. Yeah, so anyways, yeah, we see jitter looks nice. Jitter. Do you know what the SSRC is? I don't recognize that.
Yeah, that's going to be in the packets. So we could
Super.
go find it if select related and went and looked at those
Super.
packets.
It's not
You'd
a big
see that
deal.
as a field
Yeah,
in the
I
RTP.
realized, yeah, it's basically just one way that it's correlating the packets to each other.
Yeah, but the important metrics were right up there. You see the jitter.
Yeah.
So we got jitter, we got packet loss. Those are the kinds. It's nice to be able to see those over time. Not sure why it's not showing them, but
And
you know you can see that the some of those calls had no jitter and some did.
Yeah.
mm, yeah, and just a quick note on the SSRC. Think of it like a port number. It's like a source destination. It's very similar to like the source destination port. So it's
Yeah.
basically just a field in the RTP stream
Yeah.
that we use on the LiveNX side. So the SSRC is what we use to do the path analysis.
Mhm.
So we actually look at the SSRC number, and then if it matches on multiple devices, then we take that flow and then we stitch it together. So yeah, it could be just something like, port protocol or yeah, just another field
Yeah.
that we
Definitely.
collect from RTP.
Super, super sweet.
Like a identifier, I guess.
Awesome.
And from my end, those are the highlights.
Yeah.
The big wow moments, the money shots. So I
Yeah.
don't know, Jalul, if you have anything to
Yeah.
add to that, but
Oh, that was great. I definitely wanted to have Chris on because Chris runs the product, team for Livewire, and he's actually been with the company for what, 30 years now, Chris, or
close enough, about 25.
Nice.
So
yeah,
So you've
started
been
when I
around
was
since the early days because
since I
Keith,
was
I forget his last name. Keith, he's also been around for a long time. But back when you
oh,
guys
Keith
were
Parsons.
Savviest, yep, Keith Parsons. Yeah, he's told the story many times about how he started with DoD, Savviest, all that fun stuff.
Well, yeah, but on the live action side. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
from the Xavier / Wild Packets side back when OmniKeep
exactly.
was called
Yeah,
EtherKeep.
yep. Yeah, right. Ethereal. I'd even heard of that back in the day. So that's a
Yeah,
big deal.
Ether Peak. Yeah.
yeah. So Chris is the brain behind all this, Charles.
I'm on a team
Yeah.
that has a lot of brains, and yeah, I'm probably the smallest brain on that team, but I get by. I, I'm
uh,
I'm the most talkative, I guess. So that's why they
Exactly, and
don't use
that's
calls.
what's
Yeah,
clutch, and that's a lot of what's been great about this. And I'm gonna have another meeting with Jalul in a week, but I'll have some time to digest this and come up with some more questions, as well as figure out how to digest this, and figure out how to get this to customers in a fashion that they can digest, being from very floaty up in the clouds levels. So in order to sell this effectively to them along with LiveNX and all that fun stuff. But especially like this workflow, boom. That's why I love to demonstrate is effective workflows. And that's what this has been. So that's awesome.
fantastic.
Perfect.